In today's episode of the Bathroom Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Kelly Donohue, and she's hailing over from the team at Last Mile. She's a communication and brand manager, and today we want to deep dive into what she's working on, what communication and brand management means for working at the Last Mile, but also her journey in brand and media being a brand and media strategist to figure out, what she's been picking up over the years. So, Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course. So, for everybody who hasn't heard about the Last Mile, maybe give us at first, sort of a 360 overview, what it's all about that you guys are doing.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Kind of like my elevator pitch, and I do it all the time because I think the work that we're doing at the Last Mile is just absolutely fundamental in shifting hearts and minds and shifting systems. And we are a nonprofit based out of Oakland, California. But we have programs and facilities in states across the country. And what we're doing is providing real, tangible solutions to disrupt the cycle of mass incarceration. And we're accomplishing this through in-prison education, specifically in the fields of web development and audio and video engineering. And we've been around for a decade plus. And in that time, you can imagine we've expanded. And so we also provide transitional support post-release. So once someone has been released from prison, we are, supporting them with wraparound services and also working on workforce reentry. So with all those skills they've learned in prison, how to connect them with fair chance hiring partnerships to find meaningful employment.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Thanks a lot for giving the insight. Maybe tell us a little bit about the partners. What are the types of organizations that you work with? What are they looking for when they work with the Last Mile? And maybe just share a little bit sort of, what is a typical partner?
Absolutely. We have a few different types of partnerships. For instance, a hiring partner is someone who's dedicated to the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but in actual practice, in action. So they recognize that people should not be biased against or discriminated against because of maybe one decision or because of a record, if they are just as qualified for the position as someone else. And they come to us saying they're dedicated to this kind of work and they want to shift their company culture and they're looking to hire the kind of employees that do the kind of work that they're learning in prison. So web developers, coders, video engineers, et cetera. And they want to be a part of the solution. That's 100% one of our partner types, you could say, is being part of this solution that I think has been a very large front and center conversation in the United States is why do we have such high mass incarceration rates when we look at the statistics globally? And so a lot of hiring partners, a lot of CEOs, executives, HR teams, legal teams say, hey, you know what? Maybe we can be a part of the solution. So those are one of the types of partners that comes to us to kind of help us guide them through that. And another is when we're trying to expand. So right now we're in 6 states and we're hoping to be in more states through the end of the year. And so we often have Department of Corrections or government leadership come to us and say, you know what? We see the work that's happening in the US and other states and other facilities. We see the outcomes are tangible and real using programs like yours to heal communities and to provide meaningful employment. We want to partner with you. We want you in our state. And then the third partner is our curriculum partners. We provide a lot of, you can imagine it's like a coding boot camp in prison, and it's a video production program in prison, which means we are partnering with experts and leaders in those fields to help cultivate the curriculum together and then provide it in prison.
Mm-hmm. How do, if we look at the other side, how do program participants, how do they hear about, get in touch with, get their first contact point with the Last Mile?
That's a really good question. It's a variety of different ways. We have people who've been a part of the program already, and they're natural advocates for what we do. They've been in the program, they believe in the work. It's a 6 to 8 month program. And once they've graduated, they've seen the change it's made in their lives. They've developed real tangible skills. And so they're talking to, their fellow friends and people that they're incarcerated with and saying, hey, this is the real deal. But it's not just that. It's also, we use flyers. within the facility so that people can get access to some details about what the program looks like. I think it's important for people to have a general concept of what they're signing up for. And then there's an application process. So it's not that we're limited by classroom size currently. And so people really need to, apply and kind of follow certain criteria to get into the program.
Okay. Now, how do you see the website? Like, what's the role of the website? Is it there to educate partners? Is there any other role to it? Maybe tell us a bit about thelastmile.org.
Yeah, our website is really a space to educate first and foremost, and that looks different depending on who we're talking to. I would say 60% of the people that come to our website are directly looking for us, which means they're typing in our email or our website address, and they already have some contact with us, and they're coming to learn more. And then we have 30% where it's organic. It's from search results on Google. Some way, somehow, maybe they're looking into justice reform and then they're coming to the website, maybe because they're curious about what this is. And then 10% is typically from referral, so earned media or partnerships, things of that nature. And when people come to the website, we have a couple of different pathways. One is if someone is wanting to expand into their state, that's typically someone who is looking for program support in their facilities or states, like I mentioned before. And that means they're wanting to talk to a director or someone to kind of talk about those tangible logistics to get started. And then we have people who come who are wanting to partner with us. Like I mentioned before, hiring partners or curriculum partners. And oftentimes people don't know, these are new ideas and they don't know where to start. Like, we can't expect that a partner knows some of the challenges around hiring people who may have a record, and that is our job to educate them and then put them on a path to success so they can be an effective hiring partner. And then the third is for donors, funders, who are interested in the work that we do and want to support it, and they want to learn more about what we're doing. And that's why our website also doesn't just serve as an education platform, but we also spend a lot of time talking about storytelling, owning narratives, and shifting perspectives. And so the website really has that dual component to it, which is first person perspectives of our program participants and return citizens about their experiences, which in my perspective is the easiest and most effective way to reach people. People connect with stories a lot better than a bullet point list of what your program offers. So it's good to balance the two.
Very interesting. Now, how do you see the website evolving? Like, what role does the website play moving forward? Is there something you have in mind for the page? Like, because a lot of marketers, always very critical of the page and brand strategists. Like, how do you think about the page?
Well, we are actually in the middle of doing a website overhaul. So for anyone in marketing, they know that is an absolutely massive project, but it's also an incredible opportunity, to look at where you've grown since the last time you built your website, and what your website can offer to meet what you're currently doing. What we were doing 5 years ago looks different now. And so some of the ways that we're excited to build our website in a different way is to create these really clear pathways for whatever person is coming to the website so they can quickly and easily become informed, inspired, and then connect right away. That pathway should be very, very clear. And for some of the new operations and programs that we offer, we don't have those pathways yet. Something in particular that we are creating is the Speakers Bureau. We are the experts in the field of justice reform around incarceration and tech education around incarceration. And we also have an incredible team of returned citizens who have powerful stories to share. And we often get asked kind of, ad lib, can you send someone to speak to our audience or someone to speak to our company? And so we're actually building out infrastructure for that so that someone can come to our website and say, I would like a keynote for our conference, and they can easily find the person on our team that's the expert in that field and get the content they need, the information they need to get that process started. That's just one way that we've grown, but there's so many ways that we have, and we want our website to reflect that.
Very cool. I'd like to switch gears a little bit. We talked about what you are doing with the organization, how you're thinking about the web and the digital footprint. Now, I'm curious, you as a brand strategist, as a creative, like, where do you personally like to educate yourself, right? There's so much content out there on that you could be reading up, examples, case studies. Now, what's your go-to places? Where do you personally like to educate yourself in your marketing journey?
That's an interesting question. I'm definitely still old school. I love networking with people and connecting with people in real life and hearing from people's experiences. So I always make sure to stay connected, even in this digital world, if it means having digital meetings. I really believe in this idea of like not leading with ego in marketing and learning from others. But I also really appreciate spaces like podcasts and Instagram and LinkedIn, where you get a different perspective. It's easy to access. I can listen to it on my lunch break, and I'm readily learning new strategies or new creative ideas. I'm a very creative person at kind of the core of who I am. And so I love seeing other creatives take these big risks or these leaps in other directions. And it's really inspiring for me. So it's not just around strategy, it's also wanting to be in a community of creatives and be inspired to push the envelope, to say, you know what, the status quo is no longer what I accept. I want to try something new. And I always say, when you try something new, there's always a risk, and that's why people don't do it. But I actually think that that risk can lead to pain, and that's where there's just a gap in knowledge. There's so much learning that happens in that space. So when I'm inspired by other creatives, by whether it's through podcasts or other influencers, I think it pushes me to do more, and I love that learning model.
To wrap up the interview for today, I have some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Are you ready for those?
I'm ready, I think.
Very good. What is the last book you read? Marketing or non-marketing? Doesn't matter.
The last book I read was, oh gosh, rapid fire.
Or podcast you listen to. You can choose podcast or the last book you read.
Well, the last book I read was When Breath Becomes Air. It's a doctor's journey through his cancer experience. Deeply philosophical, but also emotional. It's just a beautifully done story, and I really appreciated that kind of firsthand perspective. That was not rapid fire, but I will be better at the next one.
No worries at all. What is one single thing that your organization is focused on the most at the moment?
Gosh, being of service, to those that we serve. I mean, I don't think that's ever really changed, but I think we are getting closer and closer to aligning our pillars, or sincerity, community, audacity, learning, equity, to be in service of our program participants, our return students. And that's something that will never change, but we continue to always reflect and say, how can we do this differently? Or how can we do this better? And that is always our filter through which we make all of our decisions.
And what's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the organization?
The last thing that kept me up at night? Oh gosh, how much time do you have? I think anyone who is familiar with mass incarceration in the United States knows that this is an incredibly audacious goal to end the cycle of mass incarceration. And it does sometimes feel daunting how big this problem is. But I think the thing that gives me solace, at least, is that this is not something that can be done alone. And we have a lot of people that are jumping in with us to, we may be the leader in tech innovation and incarceration, but there's individuals and there's communities and companies who are all playing a role in upholding a different kind of system or creating a different kind of system, and they want to be a part of the solution. And so the very thing that keeps me up at night is also the very thing that reassures me that we're moving in the right direction, and that really any single person can be a part of this movement. Any single person can contribute to changing the way justice looks in the United States. And so it may keep me up, but I also find a solution and I work towards that because I think it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Kelly, I really appreciate you, all the insights and stories you shared so far. The very last question I would have for you is if we would do a little bit of time travel, right? And we go back to the days of California Polytech State.
Okay.
Now you're heading out of formal education into the world of marketing, branding, communication. What's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey?
Yeah. I would love to go back in time and just tell myself that it's okay to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. I think it's important to learn and be curious and try new things and not be afraid to try new things. I think I've got a lot better at saying it's okay. Like I mentioned before, sometimes opportunities, growth, innovation can also lead to pain points. But pain, like I mentioned, is that gap in knowledge. And that's where growth happens. And it's okay to go for it. Some of the most beautiful outcomes in marketing and in storytelling, which I always say are very closely much, the same, come from taking risks and being curious and being uncomfortable. So if I could go back and just say, it's okay, go for it, and you'll land on your feet. And I'd say that to anyone else in that world. I think that would be a good piece of advice.
Kelly, really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathway Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about the last mile today, what's the one thing they should remember?
I think the one thing I hope people remember is that while we are the leaders and the experts in tech innovation and incarceration, we can't do it alone. We need individuals, communities, and companies to support us with this really audacious goal, so that we can have a more equitable tomorrow for all people. I think being someone who's justice impacted is really a challenge for everyone, not just for those people. It shapes communities, it shapes families. So we all need to be part of the solution because it affects everything. It affects how we work, it affects how we live, and it affects our neighbors. And if it affects our neighbors, we need to be a part of that solution. So I hope that people come to the last mile with curiosity and ask how they can be of service. And even if it's not with us, if there's someone in your region who's doing good work in this space, support them. We're not competitive, we are collaborative. So we hope that for the future.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathway Presents.
Of course. Thank you.